Let us see the constrained motion system that is shown in the diagrams. In order to analyze this particular type of system, we essentially can employ two methods. So this is the mass m1 and this is the mass m2. So here the acceleration of m2, let us say if we assume in the downward direction, let's say this is a, then the acceleration of m1 will automatically be in the upward direction logically, because they are connected via a string that passes over a pulley. So this is a in the upward direction. So if we do happen to write down the Newtonian force dynamic equations of m2, then we get m2g minus t being the tension, is equal to m2a. So this is by analyzing only the mass m2. The downward force on the mass m2 is m2g, and the upward force on the mass m2 is the tension force. So for the mass m1, we can write down similarly T minus m1g is equal to m1a. If we add the two together, we get m2 minus m1 g is equal to m1 plus m2 a. Therefore, the acceleration is obtained to be m2 minus m1 upon m1 plus m2 into g. So this is the first method wherein we exploited the fact that we know the relationship between the two accelerations of the mass m1 and the mass m2. So this we will call as the logical method, wherein the accelerations are already intuitively known to us. So this method can be employed in order to find out the final acceleration. This final acceleration can then be substituted in any of these two equations to get the tension force. Mind you, if m1 happens to be greater in value compared to m2, then the value of acceleration a will be negative. That is perfectly fine. That means m1 would be going downwards and m2 would be going upwards in that particular case. The second method is called as the method of constrained motion. So in this particular method, we assume that both the accelerations a1 and a2 are pointing in the downward direction. So generally speaking, it's allowed to assume both the accelerations to be pointing away from the rigid support or both the accelerations to be pointing towards the rigid support. Why is that so? So this is acceleration. So the reason why we take both the accelerations to be positive in the downward direction will be apparent in a moment. So in order to find out the relation between the accelerations, we assume the distance from the rigid support to the mass m1 to be x1, the distance from the rigid support to the mass m2 to be x2, the distance from the rigid support to the axle or the center of the pulley, which is a constant value, that distance is d. So this is d. This happens to be equal to x1. This happens to be equal to x2. And let's assume that the radius of the pulley is r. So half of the circumference of the pulley is going to be equal to pi r. So x1 minus d plus pi r plus x2 minus d. This will give us the total length of the string. So x1 minus d happens to be this value, x1 minus d. This value is x1 minus d. This value, this right hand side value of the length of the string is x2 minus d. and pi r is this much part of the length of the string. So the total length of the string happens to be x1 minus d plus pi r plus x2 minus d. D happens to be the distance of the center of the pulley from the rigid support. So this is L, the length of the string. Now when we differentiate, we get V1, the derivative of D, pi r, D and L are going to become 0. So we just simply get V1 plus V2 is equal to 0. V1 represents the velocity of mass m1. So V1 is nothing but the velocity of mass m1 and V2 is the velocity of mass m2. So V1 is defined as the increasing distance from the rigid support and V2 is defined as the increasing distance from the rigid support. So V1 is nothing but the derivative of x1 and V2 is nothing but the derivative of x2. So if we do differentiate this one more time, then we get a1 plus a2 to be equal to 0. So this is the relation that we were seeking out. So this tells us mathematically, not only intuitively, this particular equation tells us mathematically that a1 and a2 are same in magnitude but opposite in direction. So this is one equation. Now comes the very important point that I have mentioned in a note over here. Whenever we differentiate, it is automatically implicitly assumed, it gets automatically assumed that all the positive derivatives are along the direction that is going away from the rigid support. That means all the positive derivatives are going to be towards the downward direction, or else all the positive derivatives in the question are going to be in the upward direction. All of them would be in the upward direction. So this gets implicitly assumed basically whenever we differentiate. So it is imperative, if we are using this method 2, which is the method of constrained motion, in order to differentiate and find out the relation between the accelerations of the two blocks, then in that case we should take both the accelerations to be going away from the rigid support or both the accelerations to be coming towards the rigid support. So this is very important. This will play a part in all the constrained motion type of questions that we will solve in physics. So this is one equation. The other two equations are simply given by Newtonian dynamics. So let us say we are analyzing the mass m1. So the mass m1 has a force m1g in the downward direction and a tension force T in the upward direction. So basically m1g minus T is equal to m1a1. This is the equation that we can write for the mass m1. Similarly, for the mass m2, same analysis could be done, and for the mass m2 we can write m2g is the downward force and the upward force is again the force of tension. So for the mass m2 we can write m2g minus T is equal to m2a2. So these three equations are going to give us the very same answer that method 1 gave us. These three equations are nothing but the equations of method 1 when we put a1 as equal to minus a2. Then we'll actually get back these two equations if we put a1 as minus a2. So if we do put, I'll just mention it over here, if we do put a2 to be equal to minus a1 and we put a2 to be equal to a, then these three equations, equation number 1, 2 and 3, these three equations will boil down to equation Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2 over here. So ultimately you are going to get the same answer. So when do we use the method of constrained motion? So let me call this method 2. When do we use method 2 and when do we use method 1? So we generally tend to adopt method 1 when we intuitively know the relationship between the accelerations of blocks m1 and m2. In that case we can deploy method 1 and write one equation less. So our solving will be a little bit easier. So we have to use method 2 if we are not aware about the intuitive relationship between we are not intuitively aware about the relationship between the accelerations. Then in that case we'll have to use method 2. Okay, mathematically we'll be able to find out the relationship between the accelerations always using method 2, which is the method of constrained motion. However, the drawback of method 2 is that you will have to write certain number of equations extra. In this particular example, exactly one equation extra.